Hi everyone. I wanted to spend this time filming beside my dwarf banana plant. It's been a while since I used it in one of my videos, so I thought tonight would be a nice night. What I'm wanting to talk about in this video is how I've made this. This is a floodlight, and I wanted to focus on the stand portion of it. First I'll share where I got the floodlight and then we'll go from there. So this is bought on eBay, and I'll include a link for where I purchased it from in the description of this video. But really, any light that is reasonably this shape and reasonably this weight, this is about half a pound, and this has a little U-shaped bracket on it for mounting it, will work. This is 12 volts, 2 amp for powering it. So the DC application is really important. This is something that you could do for your cottage or for your home or for outside your home in the event of a power failure. It's one of the options you could use for some auxiliary lighting. If you had a little solar panel and it had a battery, you could have an off-grid light somewhere on your yard that maybe you sit at night, for example, or as a backup light that would come with you to the cottage. You know, these floodlights really do have an immense amount of light. It's the way that they're made inside here with all the reflective material. It's a fantastic product, and this particular one has an aluminum case around the light. It's really good quality. So anyway, decide on what you would want for a light and focus on how it mounts, and that's really the key part in this. Now, what I used for hardware for the remaining is a PVC end cap, a length of PVC conduit, a male adapter, and a flange. So I want to talk for a minute about engineering, and I'll try to keep this interesting and simple. I went onto the internet to find the tables for PVC strength. So if you go to the home improvement store, you pick up a 10-foot length of PVC conduit, and at a certain point it's going to start bowing on its own weight because it doesn't have enough strength to hold itself up. So I looked up the table for 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 1.5 inch. And for 3/4 inch at 2 feet, which is what I decided on for the length, it's got 10 pounds of weight that it can support. And this light here is half a pound. So the reason I wanted 10 pounds was because the weight of freezing rain will get on this and it won't collapse it. As well, you have to give a little bit of thought to the weight of rain that will momentarily be on the shape, and that it won't give up on itself or just sort of implode on itself. Now, there is a little bit of way to cheat around this for what it's worth. Conceivably, you could take expanding foam insulation, what you use around a window, and backfill the conduit with the expanding foam insulation, and that will help make it stronger. Another strategy would be taking a piece of wood that's a square and just tapping it in with a hammer, and that would add strength while the PVC itself protects it. So there are options depending on how long you need it and what length you're able to get. It's conceivable that you could approach either a free cycle group or an electrician and ask for an end cut, then wait a week or two, and I expect that they would eventually have a 2-foot piece that was cut off of some type of application, so that you wouldn't have to go buy a 10-foot length. PVC conduit's not terribly expensive, but for the length I've selected, it will work. So I selected 3/4 inch, and then this is a 3/4 inch PVC end cap. Where I live, I went to the electrical supply store where contractors go in town, and they got it in for me. And the male adapters These are readily available at big box stores. The flange here, this is a standard 3/4 inch plumbing flange. So it was in the plumbing aisle of the big box store. Because this is going outdoors, I selected galvanized. So in common English, galvanization prevents rust. It's coated with zinc on it. And it just screws in, but I had to use my plumbing pliers to get it in there. And I do want to point out that you can cross thread when you're screwing the male adapter in. So cross thread means if this is the flange, cross thread would be screwing it in on the side instead of going straight down for how it's designed. So the threads need to line up for both the flange and the little male adapter. And I did wreck one of my 3/4 inch flanges when I was doing this because I misaligned it. It happens. The other parts on here are to do with the electricity. There is more than one way to do this. What I've got here is the little bit of a pigtail that comes out of the light. To it, I've soldered a 2-pin airplane connection that's waterproof, then the matching end, and then it goes in the conduit down to this other end and comes out, and this will screw into the power supply. Now, depending on your need, you could just have one length of wire that goes in on this end, up, out, and solders it, and you just cover it with heat shrink tubing up top. There's different ways and different strategies to do DC electricity. This is low voltage. You do still need to have care and concern given. I chose waterproof connectors so that it won't arc the power on the inside. And the reason I did an adapter up here is this can be unscrewed and change the light if it ever comes to it. And the parts that go into the conduit here are called cable glands. They're the same idea as putting on form-fitting medical gloves on your hand. These provide a watertight passage for the wire to go in and come out of. And they're not terribly expensive, and you can order the size that you need from China. It's based on the thickness of the wire that's going through the top hole, and they're lined with a rubber washer, so when you're tightening it, that forms the watertight barrier right there for the wire to pass through. And then I just drilled the hole to match the size of the cable gland for the inside. So I've talked about this some, and I think I want to give some practical tips now on how I'm using this. My application is for my weather station. In reality, this is going to sit like this, and it's going to have the floodlight shining onto my weather station sensor. It's a quick way of checking light if it's available, and if something's broken, I can quickly look at it at night and then make a plan for repairing it if I get an error code from my weather station sensor software. How you could use this, a cottage for off-grid lighting with a 12-volt battery. You could use this as a backup light source for in your yard. You could take this with you camping so you have enough light sort of around your tent. Hunting would be another really good area where this could be helpful to you. Now, sort of the final thing I want to touch on. I did say a few minutes ago that you can backfill this with expanding foam to make it more rigid. If you do that, the wire on the inside needs to be encased with this corrugated conduit. Why that's important is to prevent an interaction between the wire insulation and the expanding foam. You do need to read the warning labels that you won't create a chemical interaction if you do. There are limits to this. This is not to be done with AC electricity, but it is a strategy that you could conceivably use with low voltage, or you simply run the wire on the outside of this, with the flexible conduit right beside it, and just cable tie it together, and that would work just fine as well. What I ultimately want to say to you is think about and plan ahead for how you live your life. So a very simple idea with this is, if I put a big screen TV on the wall where my camera is, I'm going to be planning the room around that TV. I'm going to be planning seating. I'm going to be thinking about friends coming over, and then I'm going to think about what else is needed, like where the remote controls are going to sit, where refreshments and snacking food's going to sit while watching TV. So it's the same thing with this type of thing. If you're using it for auxiliary lighting, you need to think about the environment that you're using it in and what's a good match for your needs, and how you'll use it. Then you'll build your project around that. And I did have to use some of my electrical soldering skills to make this. It wasn't hard to do. It's very, 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 very fiddly work, but easily achievable. And if you're needing one of these for whatever reason, and it's not a hard project to pursue, and just something I wanted to share in a little bit more detail than I've talked about in other parts of the weather station project. Hope each of you are having a good day. Bye for now.